Pleased to be joined by KT McFARLAND, Fox News National Security Analyst. Good morning, KT.
Good morning.
So the president this week, a very interesting decision, decided to say, that president back in 2009 who said Gitmo, well, we need massive limits on Gitmo. I'm going to reverse that president, who, by the way, was Barack Obama. What do you make of the president saying military tribunals may be the way to go now?
And not closing Gitmo. I mean, I think it's saying the obvious. That's what he's been doing for the last 2 years, and his campaign promises gave way to reality. I think that's good news. What interests me, though, Brian, is the timing of it. Why now? Why not last week? Why not a week from now? Because there's nothing that's changed in the last 2 years. They've just perpetuated the same policy. Now they're just making it formal. Why? I think it's because of Congressman Peter King's hearings on Thursday. Because
really?
I assume this White House doesn't do anything by accident. It's all politically timed,
Sure.
as are most White Houses. And I think what they've done is they've looked ahead and said, yikes, what if it turns out that there is a connection between recruiting homegrown terrorists in prisons, for example? Well, that means that the Obama administration officially in the position of saying that they were going to close Gitmo and put potential accused terrorists into U.S. prisons. Well, what if it turns out that that's where a lot of the recruitment of Islamic jihadists is coming from? That means they would be feeding right into that. Secondly, the whole notion of if you don't have military tribunals and you put them in civilian courts, well, what happens if you can't get convictions? What happens if the Muslim Brotherhood or any Muslim organizations in America that are trying to recruit Islamic jihadists say things like, well, we know that there's no real punishment if you go and commit an act. So I think there are a whole lot of issues that the Obama administration looking ahead thinks they might be vulnerable on, in the sense of being soft on homegrown terrorists, soft on terrorism, and they wanted to get out ahead of it and say, we're not closing Gitmo. We're having military tribunals. We're not having civilian trials. Can't accuse us of that.
Mm-hmm.
Another reversal, KT, is this president who was going to withdraw troops from Iraq and from Afghanistan and was going to set time limits, hasn't done that. And now with what is transpiring in Libya, all sorts of reports of some sort of NATO action, which means Americans involved, some sort of military action in Libya. What are we going to see? Will there be a no-fly zone, or will the statements of our Secretary of Defense basically where he said nothing's going to go on, nothing's going to happen, will that, in fact, carry the day?
Well, JD, I think it's interesting that you're seeing political people talk about a no-fly zone, and you're seeing the military guys saying, wait a minute, this is not as easy as you think. It's not just, as the CENTCOM commander, General Mattis, said, it's not just saying you guys can't fly here. It requires a lot of military action. And the question is, right now, could we do it? Well, we'd have to do it alone because the UN is going to veto any action. NATO has already shown that it's goosey about any kind of action. Any U.S. aircraft based in NATO bases in Europe would have to get the permission of those host countries. They've all said that they're goosey without UN or NATO endorsement of it. So we'd have to do it alone. Okay, well, Bob Gates has said that you'd probably need 2 aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean to have a 24/7 no-fly zone. We don't have that right now. In fact, we just had the first aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise, just got there. So we don't even have the ability to do it because we'd have to do it alone. We don't have that ability yet. And then the question is, do you want to do it? Why? Well, this is a civil war. If you get in the middle of somebody's civil war in Libya, does that mean you're committing yourself to getting into potential civil wars throughout the Middle East as the